In my hometown of Walton-on-Thames, we meet with East End Londoner, Blitz survivor and parachute pioneer, Phyllis Rowland. Filmed back in 2017, this was a time when all I had was an idea and a couple of cameras. Context for our international viewers, the Blitz was a sustained bombing campaign of the UK by the German Air Force between 1940 and 1941. Whilst targeted at British industry, the primary goal was to demoralise the British public into submission. But despite over 100,000 casualties, thanks to the stoicism of the British public, Hitler's campaign would fail. Let's hear what Phyllis has to say.
Well, my name is Phyllis Rowland, only one name, and my birthday was the 22nd of May 1922, which makes me 95.
And where did you spend your life most of the war?
Mostly, well, half in Woking, where I made parachutes, and mostly the East End of London where I lived. I used to go home every weekend and spent most of the war in the East End.
Now, I want you to take us back 78 years to the outbreak of World War II. Is it fair to say that the war truly began for you when the Blitz started?
When the Blitz started.
Because you had your own way of defying Hitler, did you not?
Oh, we defied it. At the beginning, the first few raids, we lived upstairs. We lived in, had a 4-room flat upstairs and people lived down. And we used to go down and just sit in the basement. Then we got the air raid shelter. But I went in the room, I think I went into it once or twice.
It was worth risking your life because it was better than being in an air raid shelter. So how did you cope? How do you think people and yourself coped with the uncertainty of wartime life?
Well, let's face it, we carried on as normal as possible. But of course, at the back of your mind, there was always waiting for the air raid siren to go. And as I said, with my sister, the youngest one, Shirley, and both of us remember, she remembers now, today, right back to that time, the sirens used to upset us more than the bombs. When that siren went, we both used to feel sick. I don't know, and I think we all did. It seemed the sound of the sirens was more horrifying to us at the time than the actual bombing.
This was the anticipation
Yeah,
was
because
worse.
I suppose of the anticipation, and then you knew when the bombs were coming. But, like I say, when the air raids did start, Shirley, she was the first one to hear the sirens. She was only a tiny tot, and she would be up with her clothes dressed and down in the shelter. She would be in the shelter when she heard the sirens go. But with Kitty and I, we said, my sister, Kitty, she was the most laid-back person I ever met. She used to say, look, if that bomb's if that's got our name on, no matter where we are, it's going to find us. So that's why we took our chances in the war. And we slept on the top floor of our house, all through the most of the area, but more when the buzz bombs came.
The nighttime raids were the worst. They were the most concentrated because the Germans would lose a lot more planes in the day.
But we would go out in the evening as though nothing was happening.
Whilst bombs are dropping and there's fire in the sky and everything, it's just get on with it.
Oh, the night the Café de Paris was bombed.
As in the club? There's a club
it was
called
a club.
Café de Paris.
Yeah, Kitty and I would go in there. We were supposed to meet someone, but they wouldn't let us in because we were two girls on our own. We were going to meet two chaps and we didn't. Anyway, as we walked round the corner, the bomb dropped on the Café de Paris.
No.
And we threw ourselves on the floor, and the people were killed that night. Well-known people killed in the Café de Paris. That's why I'm saying my sister said that bomb. If a bomb's meant for you, that's it.
You didn't dodge a bullet, you dodged a bomb.
Bomb.
Was there a moment there? Do you remember being just completely in shock at what could have happened, or did you just shrug it off?
Yeah, we did. And then the night the city was alight, I remember Churchill was supposed to have said, whatever happens, save St Paul's. I don't know if you've heard this. Save St Paul's. It was fire everywhere. Well, Kitty and I, we'd been to the West End. I think we'd been to the cinema, and we couldn't get home. So we both slept on Charing Cross Station. You know, there were seats there, so we couldn't get a bus home. So we slept on the station all night. And my mother and father were losing their minds, wondering where we were. Although we were the first people to have a phone, but we couldn't get to a phone to tell Mum and Dad where we were. And the next morning we had to walk, no buses. We walked all the way through London to the East End, and there was all the fire engines and everything, all, you know, fire and everything. And when we got home, we were both covered in soot and everything. I don't think they recognised us. And all our stockings were laddered and torn.
The worst. Did you, as an East End girl, did you realise what the implications of living in the East End were during the Blitz? You recognised it as a high-priced German target.
Yes, we did, yes.
You said that you're not a religious person, but there was a time during the war which made you question whether you should be faithful, right?
That was the night the V2 rocket hit the chapel. The thing I told you, the only time Kitty and I started to go into a shelter was when the V2 rockets came. We were scared of those because you didn't hear them. And this particular night, they came in the middle of the night, and instead of hitting straight down, which would have been curtains for everyone, went sideways and took the roof off and the street. And the YWs, or the people came down with tea and coffee in the middle of the night. We stayed there until about 5 o'clock. And then when we looked on the steps the next morning, it had the big notice up like that, it must have been about that, Jesus Christ never fails. And I looked at my mother and I said, well, Mum, he never failed us last night, because no one was killed that night. And it was a miracle, because it went around the whole area. And the next day my auntie came in, she said, we were told you were all dead. She said that the rocket hit the chapel last night and it killed everybody. So I said, no, I'm afraid not. We're still here. Oh, we're still here.
Sorry to disappoint.
Sorry to disappoint you.
If you don't mind me asking, did you personally lose any family or friends during the Second World War?
Yes.
You did?
We lost 5 of our one family. My aunt, my father's sister, her husband, with the youngest child, Leslie, who was 3, and her daughter-in-law and a grandchild. They had a direct hit with a landmine in Queensbridge Road in Hackney, and my father was never the same because he had to go and identify the bodies. So in one night we lost 5 family.
Just like that?
Just like that.
But then you kept on, you carried on.
Oh, well, you do. Like you say, there was a war on. So no matter what happened, people did carry on as normal.
Your future husband, it's hard to say because you didn't know him that well before he left, but would you say that the Second World War changed him? Would you say...
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Definitely. He was away 4 years, 2 years in Africa, never having a bed to sleep in, 2 years in Italy. But when he came home and after we got married, that's when the truth set in.
I see.
That's when it started.
And did he talk about it?
Not very little. A few things he told us, but after we got married, he used to go missing sometimes, and he'd go for a week and nobody would know where he was, and then he'd come home. And like you say, is it what you call post-traumatic? Stress. Because he was right in the thick of it.
For 4 years.
For 4 years.
Unbelievable pressure. At 95, you are clearly a woman of remarkable vitality. What's your secret?
If I knew the secret, I would bottle it and sell it and become a millionaire. But my sister is the same as me, and I think it was our upbringing. Because as children, we had organic food. We didn't have all this rubbish today.
It's such a rarity to meet, and a privilege to meet someone who has, not just their mental faculties, but an exuberance, still a zest for life.
Thank you.
What has kept you going? Like, how do you keep yourself sharp?
I was always inquisitive.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to know. Nowadays I'm quiet, but I always kept my mind active. And I've worked all my life, and I've always been interested in everything.
If you could use my film as an opportunity to share your wisdom and share any lessons, whatever they may be, with my generation and those to follow, your great-grandchildren.
Yes, they were.
What would it be?
To care for each other, to look after each other. It's not all about money and possessions and wealth. Although I've always wanted to be rich, I never have been. But we always grew up with a very loving, caring family.
Phyllis, I wanted to thank you for your time. Everything, capturing this is something that needs to be done, and I will do my damnedest to ensure that I share this with
Well, I
whoever
hope I've done something, to make things better.
Phyllis has such a rich tapestry of life. To this day, she carries with her that wartime spirit that helped her and her peers survive. But this film barely scratches the surface. Phyllis innovated parachute designs, she charmed influential American GIs, and she witnessed one of Glen Miller's last performances before he disappeared over the ocean. Phyllis, it was an honour to have interviewed you, and let me assure you that we will remember. But what did you think? If you like the film, please tell us in the comments and share the film so you can amplify Phyllis's voice to others. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stay tuned for the next episode.